Imagine spending years protecting the one thing passed down through generations, your family's land. It's more than dirt and trees. It's legacy, sacrifice, and survival. Now picture waking up one morning to find bulldozers tearing through it, foundations already laid, and homes springing up without your consent. No contract, no warning, no respect, just theft under the polished banner of an HOA. I didn't scream, I didn't beg, I waited. And when the time came, I did the only thing they never saw coming. I opened the dam, and then the world watched everything change. The land wasn't ordinary. My grandfather bought it after years of backbreaking labor in a time when people who looked like him weren't allowed to dream of ownership. He cleared it by hand, planted crops, and built a small dam at the stream's edge to irrigate. That dam became the lifeline of our family, ensuring the soil stayed fertile and we could survive when others said we'd fail. Years later, the land became mine, 80 acres of green stretching across the valley. It wasn't just property, it was a monument to resilience in a town where racism wasn't whispered, it was enforced with a smile. Developers had tried for years to buy me out. They came with contracts, low offers, and veiled threats. Each time I said no, but money and power don't like hearing no. When an HOA developer promised to build a better future by creating luxury homes, I didn't think much of it. After all, they didn't own my land. But one morning, the sound of machinery echoed through the valley. I drove out to the far edge and froze. Concrete slabs lined the earth. Wooden frames reached for the sky. Families were already moving in. They hadn't bought my land. They had stolen it, fencing off sections like I didn't exist. The sheriff turned a blind eye. City officials signed papers behind closed doors, and neighbors told me to accept progress. But progress for them meant erasing me. And as I stood at the edge of the dam, water rushing behind the wall, I realized they'd forgotten who really controlled this land. At first, I tried fighting the civilized way. I filed complaints, brought deeds, and stood in front of county officials with evidence stacked high. My name was on every paper, but each time the room went quiet. They shuffled documents, avoided eye contact, and dismissed me with technicalities. One official even said, "Sometimes history needs to make way for progress." He meant people like me, our history, our struggle, our ownership, meant nothing if it stood in the way of their profit. Weeks passed, and the construction didn't slow down. Roads were paved, driveways painted, and shiny for sale signs popped up. They marketed the homes as a peaceful suburban escape. They didn't mention the piece was built on stolen land. The sting wasn't just the theft, but the arrogance. Residents waved at me like I was a trespasser. HOA leaders sent letters telling me to keep my side tidy, as if I were the intruder. The pressure mounted. Strangers parked on my property. Trash spilled into my fields. Each day I watched my family's legacy shrink, not just in acres, but in dignity. But while they built over what was mine, they forgot one truth. The valley lived and breathed because of the dam. That stream flowed across their new foundations, their manicured lawns, and their fragile driveways. Without it, their houses were nothing but boxes on mud. So I waited, quietly. I cleaned the dam, strengthened the gates, and made sure everything was ready. To them, I looked defeated, beaten by bureaucracy. But in reality, I was preparing. The final straw came when they erected a giant HOA clubhouse. It stood tall, painted white with red trim, a symbol of control. They held barbecues, laughed loudly, and posted photos online. Pictures of my land, stolen, claimed, erased. That night, I walked to the dam under the cover of silence. My hands rested on the wheel that controlled the gates. Water thundered behind me, a force they had underestimated. One twist, and decades of injustice could be undone in a single roar. The wheel groaned as I turned it. Metal scraped against metal, and then a deep rumble shook the earth. The gates cracked open, and the stream surged forward with a rage that had been building for years. Water gushed into the valley, racing across the fields, pouring through streets that had been paved without permission. It swallowed driveways, toppled fences, and crashed into basements. The HOA's pristine image shattered in seconds. Lights flickered out. Cars floated like toys. The clubhouse, their proud monument, cracked at its foundation and crumbled. Families screamed, rushing to save what they could, but the water was relentless. For once, the land spoke louder than money, louder than racism, and louder than greed. I didn't smile, and I didn't cheer. I simply stood at the edge of the dam, watching what they had stolen wash away. My grandfather's land had defended itself, nature reclaiming what arrogance thought it could control. When the water finally calmed, silence blanketed the valley. Streets were mud, homes unlivable, and the HOA gone. Their empire, built on stolen ground, had drowned in its deceit. The aftermath was predictable. They called me reckless, dangerous, even criminal. But the truth couldn't be buried in mud. My deed was real, my ownership undeniable. And when lawyers tried to argue, every picture of their drowned homes only proved the point. They had no right to be there. Insurance refused to cover the damages. After all, the houses were illegally built. The HOA dissolved, leaving families scrambling. Some blamed me, others blamed the developers. But deep down, everyone knew the truth. Justice had finally spoken, not through courts or officials, but through the land itself. I rebuilt slowly. The dam held strong, just as it had for generations. Grass grew back, crops sprouted, and the valley breathed again. My land was whole, scarred, but alive. And as I walked those fields, I thought of my grandfather. He once told me, "Land remembers. It remembers who cares for it and who tries to steal it." That night, as the moon reflected in the calm water, I realized he was right. This story isn't just about homes or land. It's about respect, the kind so often denied to people who look like me. They tried to erase history with concrete, but history fought back. So I leave you with this question. When greed and racism collide and justice is denied in every court and office, what do? Do you wait for change, or do you become the flood? Answer me in comments below, and don't to subscribe.